It's Spoilerin time, folks. This is a show based on our other show, Cordkillers, where we learn about the things you need to do to watch TV. Then we watch it and we get to talk about it here. We're going to talk about the Larry Sanders Show, episodes 213 and 214, Star Trek Picard, episode 103, The New Pope, 104, and we'll be making our decision. Will we continue watching The New Pope? Also, I've joined on in the Outsider Watch, but will I have company in continuing to watch it? That's another decision. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me, of course, is Brian Brushwood.
Hello, beautiful people. Man, and we got Poodle Puncher from the chat. Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me back.
How's it going? Clyde, of course, also the host of the Vodcast. Do you call yourself a squad, or is that...
We are the squad, so yeah. The VOD squad. Yeah.
I like it. Let's get right into The Outsider. Everybody has been telling me to watch this, as I mentioned on Cordkillers. I started watching it and I totally got it. I got caught up in the idea of the show, in the mystery of the show. I knew it was Stephen King, so I wasn't entirely convinced that it wouldn't stay out of the realm of the spooky, but I liked, at least in the first episode, that they played along with the idea of like, listen, it's just evidence, right? Like he couldn't have been there, but he totally was there. And I was on board for that. As it gets a little more Stephen King-y and a little more like about the boogeyman, I have to shift why I like it, but I still want to know. And it's got a little bit of that True Detective season 1 feel for me. So I made it all the way through the first 5 episodes this past weekend, and I'm on board, Brian.
Along those lines, I think in a weird way, one of my favorite aspects of the show is how not stupid everyone is. And now that's different from being smart. You know, they're smart, you know, you're being clever, you're out thinking the system or whatever. But by being not stupid, like dude gets arrested at a baseball game by a friend of his. It knows all the cops going in here, knows that there's a kid who got killed, says one word: lawyer, over and over and over again, does not back down. And you would think part of the reason that they don't do that in movies and television is because, oh, that's going to get tedious. It's not going to get anywhere. We have to advance the story and all that. They were able to write around that and allow people to act in a very believable, very smart way and still totally hook me all the way in.
Yeah, it's when writers and producers of shows like this kind of make something an immutable challenge and say, look, I know it'd be easier. I know it'd be a better story, but let's assume we can't do it that way. Find a way to make this interesting. And that's when you get great television. That was one of the reasons people attributed Star Trek: The Next Generation to having some of the best episodes of its era, was because Gene Roddenberry refused to let you have conflict between the humans. So you had to push yourself to find stories elsewhere. And I think that feels like what they did with The Outsider in that case.
The problem I have with this show so far is I think the fact that I knew it was Stephen King going into it did it a disservice in my mind, because I went into it and I'm immediately looking for the wires. So, you know, you're looking for you've got that skeptical mind because you know how Stephen King does things. So I think I would have liked it better if I didn't know that, you know, the pedigree.
That's interesting. I suspect I would have liked it less because if you had told me this was season 4 of True Detective, I think I would have had real beef with how stuff went. But knowing there was a little bit of that king tickle, as it's famously called, trademark.
See, and it's, you know, the whole mystery in that first episode of he was here, but he was here, you know, is immediately, since I know it's King, I'm looking going, oh yeah, that's totally not him. That's like some sort of shapeshifter, or, you know, whatever. Your brain's going through all the different options. Kind of like, as you know, when you go to see a magician, you know he's a magician. You're watching
but I would say it's the reverse, because at no point when you watch a magician do you even for a second consider the possibility that you're seeing actual wizard powers. So if this was True Detective, I would immediately dismiss out of hand anything other than the possibility that this is sloppy police work, and I would be fixated on sloppy police work the entire time, and I would only see it through that window. But because this is Stephen King, anything is possible, and it made it much more intriguing. Like, well, okay, where are we headed here? Are these weird memories? Could it be a time travel thing? Could it be a monster?
I will say that I never thought the police work was sloppy. In fact, that's one of the things I liked about it is that they had an overwhelming case. They had no reason not to believe. Like, it was on video. They did a good job of saying, no. This isn't somebody missing something. This is ironclad. If you were the policeman, you would make the same call as well. And it wasn't really till episode 2 that they fully got into the idea that, but he couldn't have been.
Right.
And I thought that was one of the strengths.
Which, by the way, is my entire point, is that in the realm of True Detective, you are not allowed to invoke wizards. You are never allowed to cast Fireball in the game of True Detective. But you are in Stephen King, right? And that's what I enjoyed about it, is that everything was on the table.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't until we meet Ms. Gibney that we start to realize that fireballs may be being cast here and there, and it's a very Stephen King kind of villain, and not one that I've read actually.
That's our detective, our private investigator who colors outside the lines. Plays
by her own rules.
Yeah, which by the way, when you say that out loud, makes her sound like a trite cliche, but she's really not. She's fascinating and wonderful.
They do a great job.
And
that's the private investigator lady, right?
Yes. But also, they don't fall into the trap of making her, like an autistic who doesn't understand human emotions. She's not a Vulcan or whatever. Like, she totally gets all of it. She just runs at a different clock cycle than everybody else. And I'm not gonna lie. Spoiler alert, it is a big setback to lose Jason Bateman as our anchor. It's great that he's there to get us in the first 2 episodes. It's painful to lose him, and it takes a while for me to reset to our private investigator and our police chief detective becoming our new anchors. And by episode 4 is when I started to fatigue and think, well, maybe the center is just not holding. But you guys have seen episode 5. I've not, but it sounds like it snaps back.
See, I'm only up to 3, maybe 4. I don't remember where I dropped off. But I'm enjoying it so far, I guess.
I'm double checking. I thought there were 6.
Right. This week was episode 6.
There are more episodes. I don't.
Yeah.
Think I've
No. This you saw episode 5, Brian.
I definitely saw through episode 4. Episode 5 is where I started to fade off, but don't feel bad about spoiling.
Part of episode 5, but
I did.
Not all of it.
I did. I did. Yes, correct.
So what we were saying, what Bryce and I were saying to you off camera was episode 6, which is the one that just aired.
Is the one where it snaps back.
Yeah, is where Bryce. I never felt like it lagged because I watched all of these between like Thursday and Saturday morning. And then Sunday, I was like, oh, good. I get another outsider. This is great. Actually, I think it was Saturday night. So I really didn't even have much of a gap. Like, I had a chance to watch episode 5 Saturday night. And then I didn't really have a chance to watch another episode of it until Sunday night when the new one was there. So this is definitely a situation where binging, I think, takes away that draggy feeling that you've been having.
Yeah, because I have been watching week over week, and episode 5 is real atmospheric, Tom. Especially when you gotta wait 7 whole days to find out if they decide to do.
Yeah,
anything.
I didn't get that at all. I was like, oh, this is just the next. But I was watching these without paying attention to the start and end. I would watch until I had to go, and then I'd pause, and then I'd pick back up in the middle of the episode. I'd let it autoplay into the next one. Like, I was reading it like a book. I wasn't watching it like a TV show.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at it now. Episode 4, Tear Drinker, is the that's okay. So that is the one. I did watch episode 5.
Yeah, that's right. That's what you said.
Okay, sorry, I got my numbers mixed up. I did see episode 5, but I'm just like, yeah, we get it. Lingers around, kind of like this show is just kind of just lingering.
Didn't have that problem at all. I was like, oh, good, okay. Well, she's coming in. Yeah.
But this no, I don't want to talk about episode 6. We're not talking about episode 6. But if you have trepidation, you just keep watching. It's fine.
That gives me the motivation I need to push through because I was feeling that fade that is, you know, I think I got to the point where the guy in prison killed himself.
Yeah.
And that was the last episode. So that was
rather than one of the other victims, I guess.
Rather than be killed.
Mm-hmm. Having said all that about the pacing leading up to, and again, I can't talk about the next episode because I haven't seen it, but you know, it is shocking how much it reminds me of True Detective, like Supernatural True Detective. Wouldn't be a bad way to pitch me on this.
Well, and it's written. We talked about maybe we talked about this when I did this on The Lookout, but this is written by Richard Price, who has done The Wire and The Night of, which are crime and crime adjacent shows, especially The Night of, which is like a very similar concept to this, just without the supernatural.
So, Brian, are you thinking yes, no, maybe on continuing?
Yeah, I'll snap back to it. It's one of those that fits in the category where it's a little bit more work for me to watch a show like this because I'm having to go it alone, away from the rest of the family. Whereas something like Lock and Key will be a lot easier because Bonnie naturally wants to watch it and the kids seem vaguely interested in it. But this one is a little bit more of an uphill climb, but not as much of an uphill climb as our next show.
Maybe we could make room in your schedule. As we said last week, we would give the new Pope one more episode. Episode 4 is where Pope John Paul III, John Malkovich, meets Marilyn Manson.
I loved it. I absolutely loved that. It was awkward. It was exactly what I think it would be in real life. And the fact that he didn't know who he was like icing on the cake.
I did not love that scene at all. I think that as a boogeyman to terrify parents of teenage children, Marilyn Manson has lost his teeth, which is fine, you know, and he enters a new character. Like, we're not still scared of Alice Cooper. We're not still scared of Ozzy Osbourne. We're not still scared of Marilyn Manson. And that's fine because they have entered a new phase of their talents as an artist and so on. Absent that, I guess the whole bit was just a joke of he didn't know who the Pope was, so you didn't get any tension between the devil meets the Pope, but you also didn't get...
I think that's ascribing something to that scene that is not intended to be there.
I
think you're reading into that.
What is there then, besides...
He loves celebrities.
Well, he asked for him by name in the previous episode. He said, "Who can I meet?"
I think it's supposed to show Pope John Paul III's celebrity love. It's supposed to have a contrast by having Marilyn Manson there. Like, oh, this is not the celebrity you might expect a Pope to like. I think the Marilyn Manson side of it is supposed to show that he is still in the shadow of Pope Pius, who is unconscious in the next room over, but not literally, but you know what I mean. That I don't think it's supposed to show Marilyn Manson as silly. It's supposed to show that like all everybody knows is Pius. His shadow looms large, and he's not dead. And so people are Pope John Paul III. I think what they're setting up is that he will be living in that shadow and trying to bust out of it. And then we've got some things like the Italian government planning to repeal a tax law that funds the Vatican. You've got him appointing all the people you'd expect him to appoint, and then saying, "I want to look into Francis's death," and them saying, "Yeah, you don't want to do that. You'll get in trouble." All very predictable things as far as I'm concerned. And then Esther returns and allows the kid to touch her. So I'm not sure why we went through all that. I guess we'll find out if we keep watching.
Maybe
that was the thing that she was proposed. I
know.
Right?
There was a great scene in 3 where she went and then just said, "I can't do this."
Yeah.
It felt like that. Like, well, why did I spend all that time learning about her resistance if she's just going to go back?
Yeah. Can I ask, why do the writers hate Meghan Markle so much? Every episode with John Malkovich, they keep throwing shade.
I think that's just a joke. Like, oh, he's again, celebrity worship, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a way to drop names.
The first one, when she kept calling him about her, what to wear. Okay, that was funny. But then in this episode, he made that comment that I adore well-read women. which is why I don't miss Megan.
I think
that was the one that made me go, oh.
I feel like the idea was when they wrote that, Meghan Markle's super popular. So let's, make the super popular thing be a thing that he doesn't like. And that'll be funny because X. Given the fact that Meghan Markle's actually now like controversial because Prince Henry wants to step away from public life and all that, it does put these in a different context.
Well, no, I'm looking at it from the fact that this is before the controversy. So that's why I was curious why.
Yeah,
why
because
so hard at her.
Because it's the irony of like, but everyone would love to be Meghan Markle's friend. And once he gets to be your friend, he's dismissive of it. It's the pursuit of celebrity, not the achievement of it.
Can I confess something?
Yes, my son.
I think there's 0% chance that I fail to watch every single continuing episode of this show. I don't see myself dropping off whatsoever because the buy-in is so slight. Like even like The Outsider at least requires me to keep a mental map of who knows what and what I should be afraid of and whether or not this person's going to figure out whatever. At this point, I have such low expectations but the visuals are so
stunning,
delightful and rich. Yep. It's like just staring at a beautiful painting for 40 minutes.
100% agree.
I'm going to watch every single episode of the show. I'm not going to stop watching.
You're saying you're Gutierrez and this show is your Freddy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like
you can't resist the temptation. You're gonna confess later that you couldn't resist the.
Sure, let's go with that. That's exactly what I meant to say, Tom. I'm so glad that you found the words because all I had in my mind was a bunch of nuns dancing sexily to convey that same idea. But now we're there.
Yeah. No, I think that's it. I agree. I don't want to watch the next episode. I'm just going to say that. I don't. Like, that is an honest opinion.
But you're gonna.
By next Monday, I will have watched the next episode.
Right.
Guaranteed.
I am of the same ilk. I was like, I will probably keep watching this, but we shouldn't be talking about this anymore on Spoilerin time because they're not going to want to keep watching it. But I know I'm going to keep watching it.
For the record, everybody who's listening right now, we have all been giving each other side glances and coyly acting like, well, I guess we're going to decide. And every single one of us thought everybody else was out. And we all thought we were the one defector who was going to stay in.
I'll probably keep watching it anyway, but that's cool. Yeah.
That's amazing.
The thing I thought was interesting was the fact that you guys loved the first season.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you weren't too in on this season. I absolutely hated the first season. I didn't make it like 4 episodes in and I gave up, but I'm enjoying this one.
Well, you must hate Jude Law. That's the only.
You must be very happy that Jude Law has done
Jude,
nothing.
Get off my TV.
It is insane to me that Jude Law is still asleep. Can we just talk about this? He is still asleep.
Yeah. I can't wait.
If they could get him the right heart, then
it's like, okay, this one is Orthodox Jew. No, dang. This one was born an atheist but became a Baptist. No, dang.
But also,
what they need to do is get that guy from Temple of Doom to do the Kali Ma and take one of the hearts from one of the other cardinals.
How is it that a heart transplant is the solution to a coma? Does that work? Are we doing that?
I go. Also, did they put back in his old hearts?
I think they you've got it, Clyde. They artificially
put him
induced
in
the coma
because his heart had failed.
Oh.
So to keep him alive.
See, the story did not pass that information along to me.
I mean, that's just basic
that's
medical
my
facts.
Because I didn't watch the first season, so.
Yeah.
Hey, also that goofy opening song that I hated so much is growing on me.
The Good Time Girl.
Probably has a lot to do with just how sexy those dances are from those nuns.
Are you enjoying the different closing sequences? Because it's been a different closing dance sequence.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I kind of like that where they put something happening under the credits. It's not something important that if you miss, it'll ruin the show. But it's nice.
I find them very creepy.
They're often creepy. Yeah.
They don't make much sense.
I don't think they're supposed to.
Didn't they do a similar thing in Homecoming where they would always linger on a shot and you would see credits and you didn't need to watch any of the things that was happening?
Yeah.
But see, it's weird that they keep doing this. I guess the first episode they didn't. It was just the busts. But it's weird because in the first season they did do one episode where that was the end credits scene, right? When the episode where he was meeting with the Italian prime minister, and at some point in it, they're like, Italians love to dance, and then at the credits it's him dancing him or his assistant dancing in front of the fireplace. But that was like a one-off thing, and I don't love it. Feels like when they have a dance party at the end of every children's 3D movie, it feels like that. It feels like that to me.
Kind of making me love this
I'm
more.
calling it right now, by the way. What are they keep saying that Pope John Paul III's theme is love. He's always talking about love, and Jude Law needs a heart.
Oh, no. No, Tom, no! No, they're not going to give him his heart.
Well, maybe he
gonna
needs
give it
a brain.
Oh, it wouldn't even necessarily have to be
a
a human heart. It's a heart created by love. I have no idea, but there's going to be some connection. It's a heart created by God's love.
Very cursed words, Tom.
Is he going to become? Oh, he gets the Iron Man reactor thing, and he becomes the Iron Pope.
Iron Pope.
I would watch that. I would actually watch that. No, I would watch that season.
Pope Anthony. All right, let's move on to Star Trek Picard episode 3. A lot more on the Borg cube. We get a cameo from Hugh. Actually, not more than a cameo. It's full on role. Hugh from The Next Generation has grown up and is running this place. We have very little happen with Picard from what I recall. He's just sort of still trying to get things together, get that ship. But he finally does get on the ship towards the end of the show. And he has a semblance of a crew now.
Yeah, man. Holy cow, the subtlety of this writing, Tom. When the girl from Starfleet shows up and the bad buck-toothed Romulan says, "My sister, you look so weird with those round ears and those round eyebrows. I can't believe you're my sister undercover." And then later she shows up looking all Romulan and the dialogue literally says, "I'm so glad you have pointy ears again and you look like a regular Romulan, not the round ears that you had before." And then smash cut to, we need a pilot who's definitely not Wolverine, but will have shrapnel sticking out of him, and he'll look like Wolverine, and he'll be both drinking whiskey and smoking a cigar, and turn to Professor X, I mean Picard, and say, "What? You need a pilot with attitude?" And then all of a sudden, somebody will say, "Please state the nature of the medical emergency," and then turn to the camera, look right down the barrel, and say, "Because I'm a hologram." And,
I actually like the holograms. Stop bagging on the holograms. The holograms are good. I like that there's an EMH, the guy who is supposed to be arrogant and self-centered, modeled on himself, and that we've progressed to a navigational hologram. I mean, why wouldn't we if the EMH works?
Yeah, yes to all of that. It felt tedious and slow, and I didn't like it, and I feel bad. I feel bad for where things. I am more on guard. My defense shields are engaged. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, Picard's French. You could use on guard. Sure.
The point is, I am more guarded about how much I'm going to like this show than I've ever been at this point. I didn't much care for.
I had much better reaction to this show. It's still slow, and you're not wrong about the kind of the clunky writing in a couple bits. But I'm loving the Borg Cube reclamation stuff. I think there's really interesting places to go there. I feel like the actual like plot of the series, which is, has to do with the synthetics, is getting a little bit lost right now. I'm not sure why. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a lot of connection to her being a synthetic, but I imagine we're going to turn on a dime there and go back to making that an issue. Right now, she's just kind of a competent, plucky researcher who knows how to deal with Romulan crazy Borg.
Yeah, I'm just so surprised that, as Meryl said, this was all released to the press as 3 chapters of the first, kind of story. How imbalanced. I think about how fast everything moved at the beginning, how it didn't waste any time, how the dialogue was snappy and emotional and popped. The second episode, I could sort of, forgive a sophomore slump because you got to get things back on track. But this was really the episode to, punch it into overdrive, and it just really failed to do it for me. I'm just, like I say, I feel cautious.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't as good as the first episode, but it kept my interest, and I'm looking forward to 4. And Clyde, you didn't watch it, so
I don't watch it because I much prefer having Brian tell me what happened.
You like in Snarkavision.
I have a feeling that the actual show isn't quite as entertaining. So,
well, certainly those lines weren't. I'll grant you that. Anything else on Picard?
No, still hopeful, just more cautious. Can't believe them. We're excited to watch the new Pope.
Do you wish you were more engaged?
Yes, I do.
All right, let's talk about Larry Sanders then. The episodes are The Performance Artist and Hank's Wedding. The Performance Artist was kind of edgy for August 25th, 1993. Larry Sanders decides he wants to buck the trend and bring a gay comic on. And when the gay comic does a routine that I don't think anyone would bat an eye at today, it's too much, and he won't air it. Aside from the actual content matter of the monologue that he does, I thought this was interesting of them like struggling with, do they want to be the ones to risk public opinion? It
was a bit. I mean, it was a bit of a time travel. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that was controversial at some point. Right. Like
I had to suspend my disbelief and go, I'm going to pretend that performance was much edgier than it actually was.
My favorite. The best part of that episode is when they were on the phone with the network saying, wait, what? Since when is this okay? Oh, everything's okay? And trying to that whole conversation I found hilarious.
It's slightly unbelievable. But on the other hand, what's believable is the network would want to push the risk back on the show, on the production crew, and be like, we don't want to be involved because if there's bad press, we want to be shielded.
Yeah.
And when I say like I had to pretend it was edgier, it's like to make the plot work for me now. I certainly can see why that would have been an issue in 1993, and I don't want to belittle that. But all of that bracketed off. I don't know. I thought this was one of the better constructed and executed episodes, because our heroes weren't spared. Our heroes made bad decisions and weren't very heroic.
Yeah, one of my favorite bits in this was actually a production choice, because the night after they pretend like the network bumped it and wasn't going to air it or whatever. Roseanne Arnold at the time, formerly Barr or whatever, is the guest. And man, in a weird how the times have changed, she's the one calling him out to task for refusing to stand up to support an avant-garde.
That was a little bit of era whiplash, wasn't it?
Yeah, correct. But even then, my favorite part of that was the production choice to, off camera, you hear very far away from a mic Tom Arnold start barking out things, and then come on stage, and then you hear the sound change over that, and all of that felt like really believable, especially for the reputation those two had as provocateurs, in the early 90s. I totally believed all of that. That was probably my favorite part. The least believable part was the part where Jay Leno pops in. It was just like, I can't believe that Larry Sanders. I don't understand why he doesn't love your stuff.
I mean, I looked at that and I'm like, oh, they got Letterman. They had to get Leno. And, why not? I'm curious if the Tonight Show would have actually booked that act at that time.
But what's funny is they did a good enough job of, if a smaller show had made a controversy of it and they had the opportunity to sort of virtue signal by being the ones to bring him on, I do believe the Tonight Show would do that.
At that point in the conversation. And this is all happening in a world with very few people on the internet and certainly no Twitter. Different situation. Hank's Wedding was kind of a back on rails episode for me. I knew where this was going pretty much the whole time. It was all right.
thought I like this one more, to be honest, because because we got a glimpse of the uglier side. We've seen Larry Sanders be a coward and do the easy thing, which is what we saw the previous week. He wants to push everything off to the network and make it their fault that he doesn't want to stick his neck out and all that stuff. But this time we see him kind of doing, in Larry world, a brave thing of it's one of the few times we hear him speak 100% unabashedly honest, where between the lines he says, I don't trust women. I don't trust any women. That's why all my marriages melt down. I don't think you should marry this person. I don't believe in her, whatever. And to be honest, they leave it. It is very suspicious that they're getting married after just 2 weeks of dating or whatever. But in a weird way, I thought they gave a sweet ending in that very last, right before the credits moment, when she introduces her dad and she's like, oh, she's got a daddy thing. And Hank Kingsley is exactly like her dad. And weirdly, no. I actually felt weirdly like it was totally sweet. Like, regardless of whether or not they last together, she's not gold digging. She's not out for his money. She doesn't have a nefarious plan. This is the unanswered question of why. Why is she jumping all over Hank Kingsley? And then here's your answer, and it's not a nefarious answer. It's a weird one, but it's not nefarious.
And I remember when I saw this when it first aired back, and I remember that was the point where you get there. It was it was the perfect moment to end on.
Is it my imagination, or did they freeze frame?
They did.
Yeah, it was the button.
Yeah.
It was the button this week.
Yeah.
You didn't care for that?
I wish I had your experience of watching this, Brian.
Okay, my experience also included a young Alex Trebek, which was nice.
Oh, Alex Trebek was
pretty
great.
That
has anybody on the panel seen 30 Rock? Because 30 Rock does an episode with this exact premise.
Huh.
I don't remember that one.
Not the exact premise,
sure
but she Liz Lemon starts dating a younger guy, and at the very end, she finds out that the young guy is only interested in her because she goes to his place and he lives with his mom, and she looks exactly like his mom.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made me go like, oh yeah, that I should have seen that coming, because it's very much like a left field surprise joke to that question. But I should have seen it coming, and I think it's a testament to how well this episode is paced and written that I didn't even consider that.
Oh, that's interesting. You already had the answer.
I've seen that
story. See it when this is the precursor to that thing. That's interesting.
Yeah, more or
he
less.
knew the answer was 4, but they convinced him it might be 5.
That's right.
There are 4 lights.
One thing before we move off of this, is this episode in any kind of commentary on the previous episode? Because the previous episode was all about the censorship of Tim. And then this episode starts out with Adam Sandler singing a song about having sex with a chicken.
Man, I was too distracted at looking at how thin he was and how little Netflix money he had and how little time he had spent in Hawaii. Like it was wild to see.
There were no Netflix movies on him. You could tell.
No, I don't think there was a direct connection. Although to me, it was another sweet time travel journey of like, oh, remember when he was kind of edgy and he was known as being a college.
Distracted by the Adam Sandlerness of it too. But Clyde, I think that's a really good point. Is that whether it was intended or not, it is a nice counterpoint to that.
Why was that not okay? But this, which is actually like much worse, on a network scale. All
right, folks, that brings us to the end of Spoilerin time. Clyde Harvey, thank you so much. The VOD Squad, tell folks where they can find you and it.
Every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central on Twitch. Just search for the VOD Squad.
Excellent. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll spoil you again next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.